Susie Sheep lived an ordinary life, no different from other children. But without a father, her mother had a hard time. She worked 10 hours every day to earn a living for her daughter. She was employed sewing clothes, a labor that paid very little. She had no savings. Her house was inherited from her husband. But one day she received a job offer. She had an interview and would finally be able to get the high salary she had dreamed of all these years. She immediately quit her old job that she hated so much. Soon her life would get better. But 4 days later, she gets a call. Something has changed and now they don't need an employee. She tried to call her previous job, but it was already taken. Not having a job would mean she'd soon run out of money to pay her bills and food for herself and Susie. She tried to find some place to work, but everywhere either had no jobs or she didn't know how to do the job. Mummy Sheep realized that she had no savings left, but she was told on the phone that she could be hired in a week's time. She sold some unnecessary things to buy food and waited. And towards the end of that week, she received a call. She was told again that they could not provide a place to work. Mummy Sheep didn't get much sleep that day. She couldn't bear to think about what was going to happen next, but she was not allowed to drag her daughter into this. She began to eat less. Now she didn't buy expensive foods like eggs and sweets. At the same time, she looked for a job, but she couldn't find one. One day she went to the store, picked up some groceries, and the payment failed, but she'd already sold everything she could. And she remembered a thing that's valuable here. It's her wool. She rented a shaving machine and shaved off all the wool. It was enough wool to make one beautiful dress. She was able to sell it and got the money. It was a lot of money for her. Things made from animal products were very valuable here. The money would be enough to last her for weeks. However, a week went by, and someone decided to hire her to work as a cashier. She was overjoyed because now she would be able to get back to her normal life. But when she went for the interview, she was thrown out. No one wanted to hire her because of her appearance. No one liked the fact that she had no wool at all. So Mummy Sheep realized she had to wait for her hair to grow back. That could take a long time. She paid no water, electricity, gas, or heating bills. She ate only the cheapest food, but it didn't help. The money ran out, so she decided to shave her daughter. Susie Sheep resisted, but she had no choice. Her wool made a sweater. She quickly managed to sell it because it was already fall, the season for selling woolen goods. Susie had since stopped going out. She was embarrassed by her appearance. All she did was lie in bed and go out to eat occasionally. But over the past few days, the temperature has dropped rapidly. They stayed at home in the cold. The heating had not been turned on because of non-payment of bills. Because they had no wool, they were very cold. They had no warm blankets. Mummy Sheep had sold most of their belongings. But they tried not to get desperate. Until one day, Susie Sheep fell ill. She woke up and felt very tired. Chills and fever. Being in the constant cold was dangerous for a young body. And in addition to illness, she suffered from loneliness. Mummy Sheep bought medicine and found she was left with almost no money. Buying the medication was not part of her plans. She needed to change something urgently. Mummy Sheep waited until nightfall and left the house. She went to the supermarket. There was no one there at night. It was so cold that she was afraid of getting sick herself. She smashed the front glass door with a rock and went inside. She was scared. She had never stolen in her life. In their village, stealing was treated very strictly. She took some food, a blanket, and a toy she saw on the shelf. She reached home, covered Susie with the blanket, and went to sleep. In the morning, Susie got some delicious food and her new toy, which became her only friend for as long as she grew fur. Eventually, Mummy Sheep managed to find a job, and better times came for their family. Peppa Pig loves to go to the beach with her family. On this sunny day, they were going to have a vacation together. When they arrived, the beach was empty. There was no one around. However, that was just the way they liked it. A vacation for one family that no one would disturb. Peppa went to play ball with George. Daddy Pig wanted to play with them, but Peppa had her own idea. She really wanted to bury him in the sand. It seemed to her that it was just a fun activity that couldn't hurt. But she was wrong. After Pepper and George buried him under the sand, he felt the heat of the scorching sun, and he began to fall asleep. Pepper and George were making sand castles. They were playing together so much that they completely forgot that Daddy Pig was lying buried in the sand. At that point, his body temperature had risen to dangerous levels. Lying under the sun in the heat while he was sleeping, he didn't notice how he was in this situation. He started sweating profusely. His heart started beating fast. His temperature rose so much that he got a heat stroke. At this time, Mummy Pig and the children had played and started to go back. But suddenly they saw a hat on a heap of sand standing in the water, which was brought by the tide. Mummy Pig didn't realize what it was at first, but then she remembered Pepper burying Daddy Pig in the sand. While they were playing, there was a rush of water. She told the children to stand on the shore. She ran there and, standing waist deep in the water, removed his hat. Daddy Pig was unconscious. She started to dig out his top half, but his body started to fall into the water. She tried to hold him down. Their children were watching from the shore. They were scared to see it, but there was nothing they could do to help because Mummy Pig told them to stand still. Mummy Pig managed to get him safely onto the water. She couldn't carry him off because of his great weight. But things got worse. The low tide had started to come in. She only had to hold him, waiting for the tide to go out. Otherwise, he would be swept out to sea and have no chance of surviving. But suddenly, Pepper, ignoring the instructions, ran towards them. Pepper, who had been running to meet Mummy Pig, now got caught in the current herself and was being carried through the water. Mummy Pig could not swim to her by saving Daddy Pig. She had to make a choice. She had to save someone alone. She let go of Daddy Pig's body and swam after Pepper. George was crying as he watched the situation from the shore, and Mummy Pig managed to save Pepper. Sitting down on the sand, they watched Daddy Pig being carried far away on the waves, and there was nothing they could do to help. Pepper always dreamed of having a pet. She often asked her parents to buy a guinea pig or a parrot, but every time they refused. They said that caring for these animals was too complicated. Her parents were especially negative when she brought a wild animal. They told her she had a fish called Goldie, but she couldn't play with the fish in her dollhouse. One day she went to the bathroom and saw a spider in the sink. She remembered watching a program on TV before. Spiders are completely harmless, and they are more afraid of you than you are of them. She picked it up and carried it to her room. It was now her new pet, but she realized that Mummy Pig would not be happy about it. She felt a sharp pain, but didn't think much of it. But soon her arm became red and numb. Pepper was afraid to tell her mum and convinced herself that spiders are safe. In a minute, she felt so sick that she didn't even think about where the spider had run off to. She felt dizzy and her temperature rose. She didn't want to accept the fact that something bad was happening. She felt like she just needed to rest. Her arms weren't working. Her whole body was cramping. And when she fell, she realized she needed help. She tried to scream, but the anaphylactic shock made it sound more like a wheeze. She crawled to the door, hoping her mum would come to help. But her strength left her. After a while, George went into the room. He saw his sister lying unconscious on the floor. He saw that her arm was swollen and her face was pale. He realized that something serious had happened. He ran to tell his mum, but when he turned around, he saw a spider near the stairs. George was very scared of the spider. He realized that the spider had done it. George closed the door and held it, his heart pounding with fear. He didn't know how to help his sister. No one could have heard his screams. He was afraid the spider would kill his parents, but there was nothing he could do to help.
Oh, that's a big one.
But as he was letting the spider outside, he heard screams. It was George who had been calling for help all this time. He ran to their room, forgetting to close the door, and saw George sitting in the corner, scared to death, and Pepper was lying unconscious and with a pale face. They called an ambulance, and Pepper went to the hospital with severe intoxication. And George took a long time to calm down. But eventually, he went to his bed.